So let me start off by saying the drums are completely not my instrument whatsoever. I do not consider myself a drummer, and I definitely don't play drums well. I am a guitar player. If you've seen any of my videos on this channel, you can see that. But I've been teaching myself drums lately. And in general, I think being an autodidact is a really nice thing. Now, if you're not sure what the word autodidact means, basically just means ability to teach yourself something. The textbook definition is a self-taught person. And I think when we learn new things, especially like as we get older and we're not in the ages that we're in school anymore, it kind of helps you with continual learning past school. You know, a lot of the learning we do at the beginning is through school and it's someone teaching us, but we don't always necessarily need someone to teach us, especially with the internet. If you're on YouTube, you probably really know that. But I think that's a skill that needs to be trained, so I think it's good to kind of create these things that you're going to learn how to do every so often to keep your head sharp. But really, what I really love about drums as like a practicing tool is that you don't have to worry about harmony or melody. There are certain melodic aspects to it, and there's some orchestrational aspects, so like how every drum is tuned a little differently, and the cymbals and all that stuff, and like you can kind of voice things differently by like playing them on different parts of the kit. But like for beginner's sake and for my sake especially, like that doesn't really matter so much. I'm really just focusing on getting my limbs working and getting all the rhythms tight and hopefully making my time feel a little better. And so anyway, one of my goals for 2021 has been to learn the drums, or at least get a little more fluent on the drums, so that way whenever I'm practicing something rhythmic on the guitar or just in general, or trying to get better at something that has to do with time, I can work it out on the drums before I take it to the guitar, so I don't have to worry about all these dumb chords and all this stuff. I got 6 strings on here, and I got 12, 15, 17, 19, 21, 22 frets. So if we multiply 6 by 22, we have 132 different notes on this thing. That's kind of difficult to think about rhythm when you have all these notes that you're worrying about. But on the drums, you only have 5 pieces, especially my kit that only has 2 cymbals, 1 hi-hat, 1 kick, and 1 snare, not even any toms. I also got most of these things on Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace for relatively cheap. But I mean, if you don't have a drum set and you still want to learn, you can literally just get some sticks and like get like a cushion and work on this kind of stuff. Maybe even 2 cushions so you have contrasting sounds. But really, like, the sound isn't necessarily what we're going for. The nice sounds encourage practice because, you know, we like to hear nice things, but really you can get started on these things with anything. Another thing that it's helped me on is drum miking techniques, actually, because like instead of having to rent out a studio space or wait until I get called for a session or something like that, I can literally just post up my mics and set everything up, and then I can experiment with that. Like for example, today I'm using a modified Glenn Johns setup that I got from my friend Perry, which basically means that I have 2 mics that are sort of overhead, but basically they're equidistant to the snare, and I use measuring tape to basically kind of get the distance of that. But of course, not everyone has access to this. I just kind of want to say that this has taken me a long time to get, and it's taken me a lot of hours working at music stores and stuff like that to get all this gear. And I didn't just get it overnight. So if you're like a kid that's like, I can't afford all this gear, like you can eventually, hopefully, but it takes a while. You know, this didn't just happen overnight to me. So now let's jump into some exercises that I've been doing to teach myself drums. However, I just want to say one thing is that I've been doing these exercises, but one thing that I've been doing a lot is playing along to recordings of songs that I really like. And I'm not necessarily copying other drum groups because sometimes they're really hard. Sometimes I'm just keeping like steady time. And I generally try to play things that are within my capabilities as a drummer, which is very limited. But the idea is that I want to kind of blend in with the band and kind of feel their time feels and just kind of get used to feeling other people's feels, just physically keeping time. And I think that's a really good way to do it. It's really good to learn grooves by ears and stuff like that. But nevertheless, these are some exercises that can help you with just technicality and just like getting a better grasp of rhythm and time. And one more thing before we jump in, I'd really recommend you playing with a metronome and doing all these things very slowly, especially the limb independent stuff. You might be like, oh no, I can't use all these limbs. Like, I don't know how to use my hands and my feet at the same time. And you know, I was the same way, but if you do it very slowly, like I'm talking extremely slowly, you'll kind of like get the idea and you'll be able to do it. And I literally mean like 1, 2, 3, 4, like that slow, like 30 BPM type thing, 30 BPM type beat. But anyway, let's jump into the exercises. All right, here are the drums. Part 1, the backbeat. Now, essentially all this is playing a cymbal on all the quarter notes, so 1, 2, 3, and 4, the kick drum on beat 1, and the snare drum on beat 3. These two together act as half notes, and then the cymbal is quarter notes. So one thing that this is doing is teaching you how to feel two rhythms at the same time. You're feeling half notes against quarter notes, the 2-to-1 ratio, and this is really helpful for getting more complicated rhythms. For example, when you're playing eighth notes against quarter notes. This rhythm is actually exactly the same thing, but just twice as slow or twice as fast. And you can go practice switching between the two of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Now this is a really useful skill to be able to switch between two subdivisions or switch your counting and kind of shift your perspective. And I'll show you some examples of what cool things you can do with that towards the end of this video in the second part. So now what I want to do is practice moving the snare over an eighth note at the time. So essentially we're going to place the snare on 1, the and of 1, 2, the and of 2, 3, and of 3, 4, and of 4, and so on, and just move it around. That way we're basically trying to train ourselves to hear every part of the measure, so that way when we try to play the and of 3, we already know what it sounds like. And the idea is to get it inside your head. So the first thing would be to hit just the cymbal and the snare. The cymbal is giving you quarter notes, so you're counting the 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then the snare is a moving eighth note thing. And another thing I'd recommend is to put the kick drum on beat 1, just so you have an idea of where the measure is and you don't get lost. This is like a kind of moving thing, and it slowly starts to expand and feel like bigger and bigger as you push it back because there's more space. And without the beat 1, you might get lost, and this kind of helps you keep accountable with that. And that'll sound like this. So then I want to add the hi-hat on the beats 2 and 4. So here's how the kick drum sounds with the hi-hats on 2 and 4. Okay, and now here's the groove that I want you to play. Essentially, every measure you're going to move it back. And that will sound like this. And if you're really struggling with that and like you can't really visualize all this, I'm doing this from memory because I play guitar and like I've gone through music school and stuff like that. But if it's tough for you, this book is really helpful. It's called Syncopation for the Modern Drummer. I actually did a video on this on how to use this book on guitar, but I'm actually using it on drums. Woo! But basically this will give you all the combinations of rhythms you need in one book, and it's pretty affordable. There's a link down in the description if you want to buy it. It's an affiliate link which helps out the channel. But anyway, let's move on with this. So part 2, polyrhythms and polymeters. So polyrhythms and polymeters essentially mean when you're putting two different kinds of rhythms, two different kinds of groupings over one thing. A polyrhythm is when you have two contrasting rhythms that are symmetrical, but they both line up on beat 1. So for example, with a 3/4 polyrhythm, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So on my left hand, I was doing 3, and on my right hand, I was doing 4, and they were both lining up at beat 1. I have a video on how to play and understand polyrhythms if that's confusing for you. But anyway, we also have polymeters. Now this doesn't necessarily have to line up at the beat 1. It's more long form. A lot of times it's something like 3/8 over 4/4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. And basically that would be dotted quarter notes in 4/4 that go over the bar line, and it lines up every 3 bars. And if you're unfamiliar with these, I also have a video on polymeters. Wow, so many educational resources. Wow, you should leave a subscribe or like or something, or a dislike too, or a comment, whatever. Anyway, so essentially this 3/8 over 4/4 thing, basically we have the dotted quarter notes, which are eighth notes grouped into 3s. And this is a rhythm that is deceivingly easy, but it took me a while to really feel this in the context of 4/4. But this exercise actually helped me really understand it. So first what I'm going to do is I'm going to have the kick drum play beat 1. I'm going to have the cymbals playing all quarter notes. And then on my snare drum, I'm going to play dotted quarter notes, or eighth notes grouped in 3. It'll sound like this. So then I want to break it down so that way we really understand each of the parts of this and each of the measures. So first, I'm going to do this as a 1-bar phrase. Basically, I'm just cutting off the phrase at 1 bar and just repeating and looping that first measure. So now, once you have that, let's expand to 2 bars and it'll sound like this. And then we don't have to do 3-bar phrases because the whole thing is a 3-bar phrase. That's the first thing I played. But now let's do a 4-bar phrase. So we're actually going to have this pattern, and then we're going to have 1 extra bar, which is the first bar again. And it's going to line up every 4 bars. This is something that Wayne Krantz talks about a lot, is the significance of 4, 8, and 16-bar phrases because they're really predictable. So when you're playing really unpredictable rhythms or something that's really complex, lining up at the 4, 8, or 16 is a good way to kind of keep in check and like, here's the top again, here's the form. And part of the reason that is just because most of the things that we listen to are in 4 or 8 or 16-bar phrases. Look at the entire real book, or at least all the Great American Songbook books. But anyway, let's do some polyrhythms. Let's do the 3/4 thing. So essentially, in order to get that 3/4 thing, we're going to group triplets into 4s. We have 12 triplets for the measure, and we group them into 4s. Then we have 3 equally spaced triplets. So first, what I want you to do is use a kick drum to hit all quarter notes. And then with your hi-hat, I want you to use your foot pedal to hit all 3 of these triplets. You can also use your stick if you want. So that'll sound like this. Triplet, 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 triplet. If you want to use a stick instead of the hi-hat pedal, it'll sound like this. Triplet, 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 triplet. But anyway, let's do the whole groove now. I want to use my right hand to basically play quarter notes. I want to use my left hand to do half note triplets on the snare drum, and then I want to use a kick drum to play beat 1. And then you can do as many variations as you want with this. You can also do the 2 and 4 thing. You could move the kick drum around. You can play more of the kick drum, less of the kick drum. You can kind of switch hands and stuff like that. But anyway, now we get to the third part, which is odd meters. This is sort of the kind of thing that I used as an initiative to play drums, is because I wanted to understand odd meters a little better. I really wanted to get a grasp of 5/4. So what I've been doing lately is just playing a bunch of different 5/4 grooves on the drums, so that way it's in my head. So that way when I pick up the guitar, I can phrase freely in 5 without really counting or anything. I just hear all these grooves. So for this, I'll pick like some of the popular claves and play through that. For example, we have the 2-3 clave, which means we're going to play on beats 1 and 3. We're going to go 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Then we have the 3-2 clave, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. And then another one is actually the 2/5 polyrhythm, which basically we're going to find the midpoint of 8 notes. There's a total of 10 eighth notes in a bar of 5/4, and if we split it in half, we have 5 and 5, which is sort of 5/8 over 5/4, and it's actually the even spaced midpoint between 5. So I'm playing that in my kick drum and then doing some stuff in the snare. And then finally, I kind of just made up some grooves. And this is one that I came up with. I'm playing the quarter notes on the ride cymbal. I'm playing beat 2 on my hi-hat. And then I'm playing 4 and then the and a 5 on the snare. And then I'm playing my kick drum on beat 1. That'll sound like this. And then one challenge I did was to think of these quarter notes as the new 8th note pulse and go back and forth between the two. So this is similar to what I was doing earlier when I was playing the backbeat and then thinking of the quarter notes as 8th notes and then going back and forth. This is the same exact thing, but now I'm also playing this groove within that. And then we get a halftime feel in 5/4. And that gives a really interesting kind of time warping thing, which always messes me up when a drummer plays with me and does that. So I'm doing this so that way I don't get messed up when I play with the drummer. practicing is so cool. So then we have a bonus exercise, which is basically to do anything we did today, but switch up your limbs, which is really tricky for me. Here's the backbeat where I'm playing quarter notes on the hi-hat, and then I'm playing the kick on beat 3 and snare on beat 1. This one still gives me a little bit of trouble, but that's fine. But anyway, that is how I've been practicing drums as a non-drummer, and I feel like that's a very important thing. Now, if all this went over your head and you're still kind of fuzzy on rhythm, I actually made a video on rhythm from a very easy perspective, so you can start learning the fundamental rhythms. But anyway, that's about all I have for you today. Thank you so much for watching. If you've enjoyed it, do all the things that you normally do. But anyway, I'll see you in the next video. Take care. Thank you for sticking around.